listening via the app, everyone that's listening on Facebook, Instagram, wherever you got the link from. Appreciate you guys for tuning in with us. Shout out to Music. How you doing from the DMV? Ronnie Sheila G. How you doing, Sheila G? And who else we have in here? Music. Say I'm excited to hear your nuggets. How you doing, Mom? Evelyn, South Florida. Man, it is piping hot down there. Shout out to you, Veronica, Miss Freeman, Miss Inez. If you're listening, hopefully you feel better. That cat Dave, how you doing, brother? Great show, great show. We have some major changes coming to the network. So if you're excited about what we're doing now, you're going to be excited about what we're going to be doing in the future. How you doing, Tiffany, and everybody else in here? We got a packed house today, so everybody's here to welcome you. Lady L, name is Linda, but her stage name, her radio name is Lady L. And I had a couple of videos I was going to show, but we'll show it at a later date. And hopefully you guys are following me on Facebook. And before the night, hopefully you're following everyone. Hey, Bridget. So I am going to stop babbling, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself appropriately and let the people know who you are and what's your background, and tell them a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you. I am excited to have the opportunity to be on Rich Live Talk Show. I'm a fan of MSC Network. And just to talk a little bit about myself, I'm an HR professional. Yes, I am a minister, a woman of faith. And my heart and my passion is to meet people where they are as a mental health coach, as a counselor. So that's where my heart is. I do have a nonprofit organization called Journey Inspirations Ministries. And the mission and the focus of the ministry is to provide that counseling for trauma healing for individuals, primarily women who are recovering from narcissistic relationships. I am a survivor of a narcissistic relationship myself because I've gone through it, and I believe that God has actually helped me, and I've got to help somebody else. So that's where my passion lies. Yes.
Wow. So we're going to dive into a whole lot about your past and how you can be an asset to the station. A little bit of background. Her and we've been doing some work behind scenes, counseling and just kind of doing some things behind the scenes. As you know, everybody that's a part of this network, all of the personalities are really good people, but they're powerful people, and they're they're vetted. We don't just bring anyone on here to speak to you guys. I'm very passionate about my family. You guys are my family, so you know that if they're here, then they must be really bring it. So she's very impactful, very powerful, and as you can see, very well spoken as well. So folks are welcoming you, and how you doing, Kathy, and everybody else? So hopefully you guys can hear us real clear. I am kind of in hybrid mode, so forgive my aesthetics if I'm not aesthetically pleasing. But we're going to get to the facts, and I'm going to dive into Lady L and speak a little bit about her. You said something about narcissistic relationships, right? So let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, I know that you've heard that term a lot about narcissism. And that's basically an individual that has self-absorbed. It's beyond being arrogant. It's someone that is incapable of actually being considerate or thinking about others. And it comes from the actual mindset that they are actually protecting themselves. And they can be charming individuals who actually have that charisma or that pull to actually talk to people and have that appeal. But it's deceptive and it's manipulative, and it's actually puts you in a posture of where they're destroying who you are and destroying who your character. And they have you captive. And so with narcissistic relationships, there's actually someone that enables that behavior. And I myself was part of that predatory relationships. I can share my testimony, and I can't really tell it all right now, but I'll be happy to share that later. But with my being exposed to predatory relationships and being a narcissistic relationship, I was broken down. I was actually in a needy state, and a lot of women have experienced that. And being in that needy state, you kind of give away your power, you give away who you are because you're looking to find your identity, to find out who you are. And so I myself was a victim of that. And so with being a narcissistic relationship, I didn't realize it at first. It was later on that I realized that something's not right. I'm not really being loved. I'm not really being valued for who I am. And so I actually got to a state where my back was against the wall and being suicidal. And that was the actual pivotal moment where God had stepped in. Now, prior to that, yes, I had a relationship with God, worked in ministry, worked in nonprofits, and worked as a licensed minister. But I didn't really surrender all of myself to God. It wasn't only in that moment that I realized that I didn't surrender my relationships to Him. And it was in also that moment that I had an encounter with Him where I was able to get away safely and have my life. And then after that encounter, I realized there's something had to change. I'm the common denominator out of all these predatory relationships, and something had to change. And so I had to stop and examine myself and go through that process. And I've learned a lot. And I want to meet everybody where they are to help them to rediscover their identity and rebound from that. Because when you come through a narcissistic relationship, you are broken. You lose your sense of identity and you have to find who you are. And I believe the best way to do that is to connect with your source, your creator, your Heavenly Father. And so with me connecting with my Heavenly Father and connecting to my source, I was able to find myself and rebound. And I want to do that with others. Definitely.
Wow. So that dives into a little bit of the experience that you have. And
Yes.
also it dives into the idea that you're speaking from experience. Being in a narcissistic relationship is that's funny. You're very organized. So I hear Alexa back there getting
Sorry
it down.
about that.
It's all good. So being in a narcissistic relationship, you speak from it head on. The conversation that we're having is not about narcissistic relationships, which I'm sure we'll speak about a little bit, as we go on. So I was just kind of asking you that question so the listeners can understand the value that you bring and experience that you have, and you're speaking from a life experience point of view.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that it
Yeah.
was important. And I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about things that I know that you are well versed at and how you can be an asset to the network. Lady L is going to be on the Rich Live show in the very beginning, and then we're creating and we're building her virtual studio. So as we're building her virtual studio, she's going to be hanging out here with me as my co-star, and then she'll take flight and do her own thing. But this is just one of the topics that I think that she'll be able to cover and dive a little bit more into. There's a video clip out there that I love that you did. It was just speaking from your heart about
Yeah.
doing it and doing it scared. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Wow. Yeah, that was a revelation that I got. I actually just have to back up a little bit and tell you a little bit about my story. I think everybody has a similar story where they went through the pandemic and going through COVID, that they did some life changes. And for me, I was one of them as well. And so I took a leap of faith and I quit my job. And I know that God was leading me to do that. And I know that He was leading me to start Journey Inspirations Ministries, my own nonprofit. And I fumbled with it. I was just like, I can't do this. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have enough knowledge. And I felt like I couldn't get to a point where I could actually get on the track to start doing it. I found excuses, plenty of excuses of why I couldn't do it. And I was fearful. I was so fearful to the point where I just didn't do anything. And so I got the revelation where God was telling me, hey, I'm with you. And because of that fact that He's with me, it kind of alleviated some of the fear. But most importantly, the revelation He gave me was like, step out on faith anyway. Do it scared. It's relying upon Him, relying upon your source to realize that you're not going to know everything. You're not going to have all the wisdom, and you're not going to feel like you've got it all. And that's actually a good thing, because then you're depending upon your Heavenly Father. You're not depending on yourself. Because if we rely upon ourselves, we can fail and we could become prideful and we can get off track. But I'm a firm believer that if we stay connected to our source and get that revelation, that he can guide us and lead us on that path. And I'm pretty sure you feel the same way with the things that you've experienced. And your success story is an inspiration to me. So.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So there you have it, folks. Actually, I had a nice conversation about doing it scared. And when I saw your segment, I was like, wow, it was almost identical to things that we were saying about sometimes you just have to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And do it afraid. Yeah. And I promise you, if you do it afraid along the way, the resources will become available, the relationships, i.e. example, my brother, that cat, Dave, who's a phenomenal guy. He's very instrumental here on the network. TK Barlow, Ronnie, and On the Ground with Danielle Brown, and all the other cast members, including the one that's going to follow this show, Dr. Marcia. So I did it anyway. And as a result, we have you, and we have a whole team of people that's growing this network because I didn't let fear restrict me from what I knew that my purpose was. So that's another topic that we're going to be diving in. And I'm just kind of like jumping around so you guys can kind of see the value and the versatility of what she brings to the network. Yeah. Yes.
To add to that, and you're right about fear, everybody wants to have a better quality of life. We try to find different ways to accomplish it and to do it. And I think it is the frustration of, well, how do I get a better quality of life? How do we go from point A to point B? And you talked about this a lot, Rich, in the nuggets that you give to kind of inspire people and to help them to get to point A to point B. It's making a step. And fear will keep you paralyzed from not even making that step. And so that better quality of life that we all looking for to obtain, some of us would just say settle where we are instead of trying it out. I mean, what could you possibly lose other than just trying an effort? We invest our time in so many things, but we have to invest it in ourselves. And I remember you saying that, to invest into yourself. That's important. Yeah.
That's big. That's big. That's big. So, folks, so you'll know, Lady L and I, we did not rehearse this conversation. We kind of freestyle it, but I just wanted you guys to understand that she's ready. Everyone that's a part of this network, they know how I roll. I will stretch you. I will test you. But it's all for good because we're growing. And that's why I didn't want to, we don't script what we say when we're on here together. We're going to come back and we're going to have another show with all of the personalities, and we're going to dialogue with you guys because you guys are actually educating us in the chat. We're learning a lot from you guys. So, and I want to say shout out to Bridget, who's also another member of the organization. Bridget is from the Everyday Warriors on Clubhouse. She has her own platform and is doing very well, but she's joining us as well. And if you see the marketing and the good looking pictures and photographs and all of the content has kind of picked up, well, Bridget is my marketing director and my PR person that's making sure that my image is kept up to par. So I'm just saying that to say that we're speaking about stepping out. And I did, and I took one step, and then the other things were provided for me in a sense of relationships, cultivating resources and things of that nature. So I have some very powerful people around me, but it doesn't make me extraordinary because I have such a group of wonderful people. What really makes this whole thing extraordinary is that I stepped out on faith. And that one step led to this whole brand being what it is. So these are the type of things that I'm very proud of, and the people that I partnered with to kind of help grow this organization, like yourself and Dr. Marcia and her guests. And we also have a realtor that's going to be joining the network. So we're really expanding. And I just think that you'd be very, very important to speak about some of the things that you're doing and that you have done. Like, tell us a little bit about Journey Inspirations.
Yes, Journey Inspirations Ministries is basically supporting women, primarily women, or individuals, like I said, that are recovering from toxic relationships, narcissistic relationships. And in that, it is providing that coaching and that counseling through a spiritual lens. And I believe that that is something that's important
Yes.
to look at them holistically. I mean, you can look at someone as far as their physical health and you can look at their mental health, but also looking at their spiritual growth and their spiritual health. And I think that's important to help someone to connect with who they are, to connect with recovering from something traumatic as toxic relationships or a narcissistic relationship. And so with Journey Inspirations, I give that inspiration for people who are going on that journey, because this is the revelation that I've received, is that we're all on a journey that we are going through in life. We all think it's a marathon and it's a destination that we have to get through, but life is a journey, and you need to have that inspiration to go along with that journey. And so God gave me that insight and gave me that revelation, and that is important for people who feel trapped, especially if they are living their life through someone else. And it is to give that spiritual coaching, that spiritual guidance to everyone who needs that inspiration to go along their life's journey. So that's the focus of
big.
it.
That is big. That is big. So there you have it. We have Get Fit with Dave, and then we have Girl Boss, and we have Nuggets with Rich Live, and then we have financial literacy with TK Barlow, and then now we have Journey Inspirations with you, and we have social justice and advocacy and grassroots coalitions through On the Ground with Danielle Brown. So there's so many things that we're bringing to this network, and we're offering this absolutely free. And then we have a realtor that's coming on board. So we have so many different dynamics that are coming on board. And these people, I am very, 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 very particular, and I'm scrutinizing them and making sure that they are actually walking. So these are grassroots people that are out there doing the work, making a difference in people's lives. And you can go from Journey Inspirations straight to Girl Boss, because after you get the spiritual side of it correct, then you can go ahead and be a boss with Dr. Marcia. And if you want to get your body
Absolutely.
right, you get fit with Dave. And if you want to connect with the civic organizations that find out what's happening in our political society, then we have On the Ground with Danielle Brown. And if you want to be motivated, bingo, I'm your guy. So you want to buy a house or sell a house or make money, right? So we have all these different resources right here that we're willing to help you out with. For those of you that are willing to reach out to us and connect with us, thanks for being courageous enough to have a conversation with us, because we have been able to really, really impact some lives with the resources that we bring to the table. And here's another remarkable resource that we have with us. So I really appreciate you joining us. I'm gonna just off the cuff, I'm gonna throw some questions at you of what I think, sure. And then I'm gonna turn to the audience and have them, Ronnie, if you can moderate that, if you could just answer this question, because the audience that we have is from 7 to 85. That's the range that we have. And then we're all over the United States as far as viewership, but then we're in 8 countries outside of the U.S. So we hit a broad audience. We're covering everything from old school hip hop to gospel, jazz, all different genres with the exception of heavy metal. But then the other part of it is we're hitting all the age, and then the demographics are changing as well. So where I'm going with this question is, for such a broad range, and I'm going to be honest, 94% are female listeners. We're trying to change that dynamic, right? We're hoping that these beautiful women bring these guys out. But we're 94% female listening audience. What advice would you give to women that are in relationships or not in relationship or have been in relationships that may be stuck or may have plateaued and feel like they're at a place where they just want to be comfortable? So they kind of they may be stuck on their journey, what advice would you give them? And I know it's a off the cuff question, but what advice would you give that broad audience?
I would say the advice that I would give is first acknowledge how you feel. You have your emotions for a reason, and you should not ignore those emotions because it's there to guide you to get some more insight and revelation of where you are. And you've heard the term emotional intelligence. And that's basically for you to be in touch and be self aware like, okay, I feel this kind of way. Now that you recognize that you feel a certain way, that you're feeling stuck, then take that time to stop. We are so busy as women. We just keep going from one thing to another and we give ourselves away and we are not actually spending that time on ourselves. It's important for us to spend that quality time with ourselves to identify where we are, how we're feeling. Then after you do that, then if you find that you can't get that help with the time that you spend, if you are a woman of faith, going to your source. If you're not, there's other sources that you have. There are other people or other things that are speaking to you. And so I'm a firm believer of, the Christian faith, but whatever faith you have or whatever you find to be your source, turning to that and turning outside from yourself to someone else, whether it's counseling, coaching, your family or friends, and saying, hey, wait a minute, I'm feeling stuck. And if you can identify that you have a problem, I believe that's the first step. And then the next step is for you to actually get the help that you need. And then it is also about realizing that this is just a wake up call that you need to pivot and turn and to do something different. I like to meet people where they are, for you to ask those questions and to say, hey, what about this? When anyone asks me, I automatically tell them about my faith as being a believer of Jesus Christ, and I want to help them. But I also want to meet people where they are. And then with that, if you find that this is not the answer for you, then of course, I'm going to tell you my solution and answer. But let me repeat my answer to make sure I answer your question. And that is first to identify how you feel. Secondly, it is to get some help and to do that outside of yourself. Because feeling stuck usually is a sign of so many different things. And that's a broad question. And I know there's different questions I want to ask as far as where you are and what relationship you're in and how long, so many other questions, but that's a general answer. And I hope that helps someone.
Yes. No, actually it helped me. So thanks for what a wonderful way to, because I kind of gave you a shotgun blast from young women all the way to seasoned women that are in their 80s. So I know we couldn't go specific because of timing, but I think you covered that really, really well. So I'm going to take a second and then I'm going to give people an opportunity to ask questions. Put your question in the chat. She's a mental health coach. She's also a counselor. She's also a speaker. She's I call a spiritual advisor, and she's an HR specialist. So she's also working on building the infrastructure right here at the network. This is what she does, right? It's, amongst so many other things. So we had a whole wide range of things that we can cover, but ask those questions, and I'm sure we can get those questions answered. There's so many different things that we can take away from this conversation. But what I wanted to do was introduce you guys to what was new. She's new. She's new to the network. We've been working behind the scenes, but I thought it would be great to bring her to the forefront so that you guys can know that she's here. She's available. She's a resource, and very, 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 very powerful. Very humble at the same time. So I'm kind of rambling because I'm waiting on we're broadcasting, so it's going to be a little delay to get the questions in. So I want to say hello to a few people that jumped in. Natasha, I haven't seen you in a while. How you doing, Natasha? Natasha Love, appreciate you for coming in, and everyone else that's here. Hopefully I didn't miss anybody, and the everyday warriors that are listening. Bridget and the crew, amazing crew. Mr. Zor, Miami Gardens, Trina. Ask questions because let me tell you something. First of all, thanks for being courageous enough to even be willing to ask the question. How you doing, Terry and Tiffany? How y'all doing? So ask questions, and then we'll have a formal introduction with the whole entire crew at some point. But I really wanted to bring her out and expose her to you guys. And the reason I asked that question, because we have such a loyal listening base, and they go from personality to personality, which is great. So this same audience will be waiting, and they'll tune into Dr. Marcia's show. Some of them were on the exercise show with that cat Dave at 6 from 6 to 7, and they're going to follow you as well. So the content is very important, and that's why we make sure that we bring nothing but meat and potatoes. Let me check and see if we have.
I'm open to hear your questions and to answer. And this is just me being transparent on this platform. And that was something that I had to say yes to with God, with starting Journey Inspirations and now being with the MSC Network. One of the things I felt that God was leading me in this direction and just saying yes. And so I'm not going to say that, hey, I'm perfect. No, I've learned from my mistakes. And in me learning from my mistakes, I want to help somebody else. So I will just be transparent and be authentic and organic, like Rich would say, to help somebody else, because that's what it's all about.
That's great. That's great. Well said, well spoken. And let's speak a little bit about some of the things that you'll be offering the listeners. What can they expect to hear from you now that you're part of the network? What are the areas you're going to be covering with them?
Well, I would like to make sure that I hit the aspects as far as spiritual and mental. You know, we are a holistic being. You know, we have the physical, and then we have the actual mental, but then there's also our soul, which is comprised of our mind and our emotions. And I want to address those things as God leads me to do that. But what is important with that, just to give an example, is helping people to take the time to contemplate a prayer is what I call it, or to meditate. And you hear that term a lot, where you hear people say, oh, I meditate and I meditate. And then some people are like, oh, maybe I can't do that. But basically what it is you focusing your thoughts. For example, people worry a lot, or they ruminate on negative things. And if you could just flip it and actually ruminate or meditate on positive things, and that's scriptural. But I want to encourage people and to do that in a creative way. I mean, some people are, they listen to music, or they like listening to other people, but finding a way for you to turn down the volume on the noise in your life. And so you can actually tune in and you can actually hear from your source, so you can address all of the issues or concerns that are going on in your life. And there's different ways that I would like to teach or guide or give that inspiration to you on your journey, so that you can learn how to do that. And let it be repetitive. Let it be something that is helping you to learn and to grow. So that's just one of the things that I would help people to meditate or do contemplative prayer.
That's good. That's good. I'm learning. I love being a student. It's great when you surround yourself around great people, positive people, because you know what? We're all learning. So thanks for that information. I do have one question. Sheila G., what's the difference between compromise and faith in relationships?
That's a good question. When you know who you are, and you know the core of who you are, be it your personality, your beliefs, and that make you who you are. Compromise is whenever you would rather forfeit that to do or to be something else for someone else. And then faith is when you actually know that this is your belief, this is your core being of your spiritual beliefs that you demonstrate naturally. And with that faith, and that is outside of yourself, believing outside of yourself, that is how I define faith. Faith is something that you can inspire others to do, and that's something that you give to yourself, and that's something that you are inspired along your life. But in the relationship that you are in, you should be free to demonstrate who you are. I think a lot of people, when they get into relationships, they get their representative. I think Richie was talking about that. And so they want to impress people. They want to please people. They want to be accepted and validated in those relationships. But whenever it gets to a point where you compromise, meaning that you lay that down in exchange for the attention and love that someone is giving to you, that can be detrimental. Instead, you want to be confident in who you are and show who you are, and that person should be able to celebrate who you are. Now, granted, we're not perfect. We all make mistakes, and there's room for us to grow and to change and and learning to evolve. But whenever it is to a point where you cannot be authentic in who you are, and it changes your perception of who you are, that's compromise, and that can be dangerous.
Wow, that's big. That's good. Great question. Sheila always asks amazing questions. That was a good, really, really, really
Yes.
powerful. I want to kind of add on to that question. What do you say
Yeah.
to women? Because we have a mature female listening audience. What do you say to women that have sacrificed already and that have dedicated their lives to their mates, their relationships, their children, and they've dedicated so much of themselves that they really don't know who they are? What advice would you give to those folks?
Um, I have to define identity. I've got to go back to that. And that is identity is not what you do, it is who you are. It is not what your last name is, it is not your title for your jobs. That's what you do. And a lot of us, women and men, we get wrapped up, our identity is wrapped up into that. And so, because you've sacrificed, and don't get me wrong, sacrifice is what love is. At the core and the definition of love, it is to sacrifice and to give to those within your circle or within your family. And so when you're doing that and you find that there's nothing left to give back to yourself, remember, self-love is also important. So with you loving yourself and you feel like, oh, okay, what do I do next? That's when you have to remember who you are. Because if your last name never changes, you still are valuable. If your last name does change and you have kids and your mom and your wife, then you have to remember you also was Linda, or you were also Sheila before you even got your last name changed. And that should never lose sight of that. And so I would encourage them to remember at the beginning of the original who you were. And then start that journey of beginning to unravel and rediscover. And there should be some sense of joy in rediscovering your identity and who you are, because that's what's going to be constant throughout whatever comes in your life.
Wow. Wow. That's a drop the mic. We could just drop the mic on that one. That was great. That was great.
That's a good question. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks, Sheila, because Sheila invoked that question. Sharon. Sharon's one of our number one sponsors. Thank you, Sharon. Sharon has a question. When you meditate during the week, it calms you down and keep a clear mind and a great mindset to stay positive. So this is more of a statement. It's not a question. Yeah, so meditation is very important.
It is. Meditation is very important. And I think people, they get the impression from society that meditating is that you're sitting on the floor, squatting down, and you're saying to yourself. No, that's not all what meditation is. It's different ways that you can do it. It is being intentional with your thoughts, because you'll be surprised how you can ruminate on something negative and it turns up into being, you end up being anxious and you're starting to worry. And so instead of ruminating on the negative thing, it's also focusing on the positive, on the good things. I'm a good fan. I'm a big fan of that. I think it's great and it's wonderful.
Right. That's good. And I'm glad you broke it down, because meditating somehow or another have this thing where your legs are crossed in the Indian style,
Yeah.
and you have your hands like this, and we believe that
Yeah.
smoke needs to
Just
be
like
coming from somewhere.
incense in the air and everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. No, it's just being intentional, intentional,
Right.
intentional. So, the questions that I'm asking are some of the topics that I cover. But I know that as a male, we see things different. And that's why it's so good to have you on to get your perspective, because I'm advising women on what I know based on who I am and how I was raised. So it feels so good to have someone that brings a female perspective at this level in which your level of understanding. So with that, I really appreciate you. So
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
yeah, so I have a question. Since none are coming in, I'll ask my own questions. So for women that are in relationships or may not be in relationships, and society has or they believe society has an expectation of them that at this age, at this place, in this juncture of your life, you should be this, you should be that because you're this, you should be at this place, you should be a homeowner, you should be wealthy, your kids are in college, you should be here, you should be married, you should be all these different things. And the weight of the world is on a woman's shoulder or men's shoulder, saying, based on society, stigmatization, that you should check all these boxes at these specific times. What advice would you give those people that are following that trend unnecessarily?
Oh man, you are hitting on some things. So I will be transparent and I will just say that I was that woman. I was that woman that felt like I wasn't achieving anything. I felt like my value was predicated or determined upon me meeting those checklists as far as what society would say that I had to accomplish or I had to be. And so I am a single woman, no kids. I haven't been married yet. And so I those are the things that you're like, okay, my value comes from that. And I was raised in a traditional home setting where it's like, these are the things that make you a lady or a woman and adds value to your life. And so it was depressing for me to not be able to check those things off and say, okay, this is what I have value. But again, I got to go back to my belief, and that is my faith in God, and realizing that staying connected to my source and learning that this is not defining you. So, first, I would say you have to realize that you can keep killing yourself. And I know some women who have corporate careers, and don't get me wrong, I think that is wonderful. But whenever it becomes a sense where you're serving that and it's killing you, that's when you need to actually stop and just say, hey, my identity is not wrapped around this. This is not what gives me value. I give value to it and flip it in a sense. And so that's when you can truly enjoy life. And so I've had to learn and realize that this race that I'm going, it's not a race, it's actually a journey. And I want to enjoy the journey that I'm going through. And so for me to enjoy it, I've got to redefine what my definition of success is.
Mm.
And I also have to recognize that these things that I felt that would give me value. No, it's not. It can be depleting to you, and it doesn't give you value. You add value to those things and walking into situations and the value in the relationships that you have. And so you can keep trying to kill yourself or drain yourself based upon what society says, or you can actually have another blueprint or another measure of success and let that not be dictated to you, but you dictate it. There's something that I would say that I received this revelation that was so pivotal for me as far as getting up and actually forming Journey Inspirations. And that is with me looking at all the things that I didn't have or I accomplished, so to speak, and those achievements that I want to do. I got the revelation that it's not about what you see, it's about what you believe.
Mm.
And so what I mean by that is I can look at my situation and I can just say, okay, I can't do this. And I can compare myself. And there's a comparison trap. And I know, Rich, you talked about that, the comparison trap of comparing your life to someone else's and feeling like, okay, you're not successful. Instead of me looking at somebody else, I can focus on what I believe about my situation. What do you think about the situation? What do you believe about it? And in that will inspire you to do something different because you know the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results.
Yes.
And so, yeah.
Wow. That is, listen, this is each and every Tuesday now moving forward. I don't know. Dr. Marcia has a question, but let me tell you something. And then after we answer this question, we're going to have to wrap so we can get ready for Dr. Marcia's show. And listen, folks,
Yes, definitely.
the cool thing about this whole program that we have, we all strengthen each other. Dr. Marcia has coached several of us, and I've coached several of us, and we're coaching each other, and we're sharpening iron, and we're just trying to kind of have that flow into you as listeners, and you guys are sowing seed into us. So the cool thing is that we're actually in the audience as well. So it's really good to have
Yes.
the whole network and team listening. So I'm going to read Dr. Marcia's question. This is a really good question. As a narcissist, survivor, thriver, how do you mentally navigate rising above being the prey from being part responsible? Wow, that's a really deep question. If you
That's a
will,
deep
for
question.
allowing, oh, that's pretty, it had to be a doctor to ask that question.
But that's a good
Amazing question.
question.
Amazing question. Go
And
ahead,
yes, and it actually
please.
talks about the enabling part because there's usually a relationship with a narcissist where there is the narcissist and there's an enabler. So when you have the courage to walk away from that toxic relationship, that you have to celebrate that, and to stay out, and that you don't go into another narcissistic relationship because hey, that can happen. Go from one predatory relationship to another. So if you are coming to grips with your who you are and realizing that there's healing that you need for yourself and there's things I need to identify with to keep yourself from falling into that mind trap of oh my identity, oh my worth is is given away to someone else, because that's the cycle that you can go through. So to keep yourself from doing that, you actually have to own where you are, own how you contributed to that, and that's not to beat yourself up, but you actually need someone, a counselor, a therapist, someone, a mental health coach to help walk you through that process, depending on what level you are. Some people go into depression, so I would recommend that you would actually have professional help, a therapist to help you with that. But wherever level you're at, you should be able to say to yourself, yes, I did that. Yes, I've learned from that. Yes, I compromised. Yes, I gave away my power. Yes, I gave away this. And it's okay to recognize that and then say, okay, now from here, I know that this is my trigger, because you have to understand that you've been conditioned for quite a long time. And so, or, whatever length of time you had, that conditioning, you have to go through the process of reconditioning yourself and your mindset and recognizing your triggers so that you don't go into that trap of this is all that I'm going to be, this is all that I am, and I guess I have value whenever I'm with a narcissist or someone that's controlling me. And then you have to recognize and rebuild in your mind that you have value, you are validated, and you are loved, and that you have a gift to give to this world, and no one but you can give it. And so I think that is pivotal and important. There's so much I can answer with that, but
Wow,
I know we got
that's
time to
amazing.
wrap
Yeah, we
it
got
up.
to wrap up, but let me tell you something. That's
Okay.
amazing. That's amazing. So we're gonna wrap up. Dr. Marcia, you would be the one to ask that magnificent question. Sheila, a great question as well. So I'm gonna give you
Okay.
about a minute and a half to answer this question from Sheila, but it kind of
Okay.
alludes to uh, the Dr. Marcia previous question. She said when people label that you're overly confident and that you overly believe, you're overly over believer in your faith. How do you handle that situation? So I'm going to kind of tie that into what Dr. Marcia said. So when you're coming out of that and you identify, like you said, that I contributed to that, but I am better, I am more, right? I am more powerful. So you recognize who you are now, and you're taking it from this point now.
Right.
Then you go from pretty much being draped in the sheep to being this beautiful, magnificent person who's powerful, who recognizes their self-worth, and now it appears to be overbearing. How do you how do you balance not being set back from coming into your own because they don't recognize this version of you?
Well, I have two things I want to say. The first thing is that be careful of the definition of arrogant. because arrogant is you're not really focusing on someone else, and you have to really have the emotional intelligence to realize, is this arrogance or is this confidence? With you being confident, you're not going to be tearing down anybody else. You can celebrate who you are without diminishing anybody else. That is confidence. Arrogance usually maybe you just being focusing on your focusing on yourself, excuse me, and you're being detrimental to somebody else. So have that emotional intelligence to really look at it at the right perspective. And then there are other people who may not know how to actually celebrate who you are, celebrate that you recovered, celebrate that you are actually talking positively about yourself. And that may be difficult for them. And something that you had said, Rich, you said you cannot bring the new version of yourself to the same old audience. Remember you said that?
Yes.
So I'm going to pass that back to you.
Oh, that is awesome. Listen, folks, the Rich Live Show just grew. So it just expanded with all this talent, amazing questions. Hey, we got to skedaddle, we got to hop because we have another powerful show that's following this one. So if you guys will stand by, I want to say thank you to you, Lady L, on the Rich Live Show. We love you and thank you so much. All right.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for Dr. Marcia. She is awesome, girl boss. I love it. Yes.
So
thank you for having me on.
All right. Stay tuned, folks. Don't go anywhere.